For more local radio every day, tune into KCAA Loma Linda.
Welcome to U-Turn Radio. Let's turn it around. Here at U-Turn Radio, we believe in big-hearted communities and small governments. Join your hosts, Eric Steinman, Nadia Renner, and Tom Murphy, as we work to put local governments on a diet and champion the charities that support your communities.
Welcome to U-Turn Radio.
All right.
1st of July, another month.
Time's rolling along.
It really, really is. Welcome to U-Turn Radio. If you guys just joined, or not just joined, but if you guys never heard us before, we are a radio show where we believe in small governments and in big-hearted communities like the IE. Although we are certain that the Inland Empire is big-hearted, we believe local governments are way too big and growing bigger. So we want to change that, and we bring all that information to you guys and different topics that we also talk about here in the Inland Empire.
Yeah, and I like that balance between big-hearted communities and small governments. You know, like I said, we talk a lot about small governments, but we really want to balance that with big-hearted communities and champion those folks that are working in the community and doing good stuff.
Absolutely. And you guys can also join and call in at any time at 909-792-5222. We also, here at U-Turn Radio, we give money to your charity. If you call in, and you can easily just call in, we will donate to your local charity here in the Inland Empire, and you can win hundreds to thousands of dollars. We've given out from like $200 to like $1,300. So I would call if you have a favorite charity here in the Inland Empire.
Yep, very good. And that again is to kind of support that second part of our mission of the big-hearted communities.
Absolutely. And you can also email us, info@uturnradio.com. You can also check out our last shows on www.uturnradio.com. Our website's up there. You could see videos and get to know Tom. Eric's not in live just yet with us, and you can also see me there with our new videos.
Yeah, and today's show, you know, we did a kind of a series on You Won, Now What?
Right.
Now we're moving on to So What Can We Do Now?
So last show, it was really about the elections that we covered and what was happening, or what change would we see from the new people in these positions.
Yeah,
and
the point was, you know, there really aren't a whole lot of new people. Five of the 7 incumbents won, or they ran against nobody, so obviously they won.
Right.
And then we spent a lot of time with the other 2 positions, and basically recognize that they are going to have a real challenge as they move into their position because of either, you know, issues that have come up in the past that they're going to kind of step into, or kind of substantial organizational change that they're going to have to drive. Both of those are going to be challenging for them, and probably trying to drive the bureaucracy or the system to shrink is not going to be on the top of their priority.
And that is the district attorney who we're speaking about too. That is new to this position. Jason Anderson is his name.
Yeah. Yes. He's going to have a challenge, and then I can't even rattle them all off. The auditor, controller, tax collector, that other position with the 4 titles.
Right. And we cover all of that, and you can definitely check that out on our last show. Today our show is going to be very interesting too, because we're doing.
It could be interesting. Now you're going to have to stick with us a little bit because it's going to be a little bit thick at times, or it could be. Basically, we're going to do kind of a mini civics lesson and try to apply it to the San Bernardino level.
Right, and this is going to be really important too. And I say interesting because for some, like myself, I think that this show brings so much education and awareness of things that are happening. So that's why I say interesting, because there's interesting topics that if you're not aware of become interesting to learn about. And that's why we are here at U-Turn Radio.
Yep. So I guess to kick this thing off, let me flip a sheet of paper here so I can check my notes out. So we're moving forward in how we change local governments. You got to ask yourself, what are my tools, right? If you got a job to do, first thing you do is come up with the list of materials and the list of tools you're going to need, right?
Right.
Okay, so a citizen is going to have a list of tools in their toolbox, and it's going to be the vote, the initiative, the referendum, and the recall. And then there's what I'll call local engagement for now. So those are kind of the 4 or 5 tools that you have as a citizen to make some sort of change.
Okay, to create change. These are the options that we would have, because last week we talked about, issues that happen, and this is what brings us to this show today. These are the type of things that we can do as citizens, is what you're saying.
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
Gotcha.
And if you will, the authority for that, California Constitution, Article 2, Section 1 says all political power is inherent in the people. So I don't know about you, but when you think of politics, do you think that political power is in your hands?
I never thought that. Not once. Other than I know, like the voting part, that's where I feel like I have maybe like a little power, but I've never thought to have that much power.
Yeah, and many people forget that the power of the vote is what drives the power in politics, and that is still true, no matter maybe how cynical we've become about the vote. But our the California Constitution clearly states that all political power is inherent in the people, and that the reason for government says government is instituted for their protection, security, benefit, and they have the right to alter or reform it when the public good may require.
Oh, wow.
So this is like line 1 in the voting section of the Constitution.
Right. Which comes down to the toolbox that you're talking about as far as being citizens and having the toolbox, the things that we can work with to make a difference.
Yeah. Yep. Very good. Okay, so the first one, we won't talk about this a lot because the vote is, it's kind of self-explanatory what a vote is and where it came from. It's very basic. You got to be 18 years old. You got to register to vote in the state of California, and in California, mentally incompetent, imprisoned, or if you're on parole with a felony, those folks cannot vote.
Right.
But that's, the rest, that's a pretty large population. 18-year-old registered to vote. That's all you got to be.
Absolutely. What about if before we keep going through the toolbox of the things that we citizens can do, why don't we go to the phone? Oh, we dropped the call. Okay, so never mind. We could keep going through the toolbox.
Okay. And just, obviously, in general, votes are, every 2 years, twice a year for the what did we just do? The primary and the general election,
for the county.
Yeah. Well, for anything.
Okay, gotcha.
No matter where you live, in general, you'll vote in the first week of June, or early June and early November.
Got it.
And you'll do that every 2 years. Okay. So go ahead. You look like you have something you have.
No, I was going to say, now we're going to go to the phone. We have a guest today, Jill Henderson. She's the Director in Fund Development and Community Outreach of Humane Society here in San Bernardino Valley, which is an organization, like we mentioned at the top of the show. We give money to charities here in our local, here in the Inland Empire. So let's welcome Jill. Hi, Jill.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for being with us today. So tell us a little bit about your guys' organizations. What do you guys do out there in the Humane Society of San Bernardino Valley?
Well, I always start with what we don't do. Since our
Okay.
name's the Humane Society, everyone automatically thinks we do adoptions or we're a shelter. But our founder, Joyce Martin, when she started the organization in 1970, thought instead of starting another organization that does adoptions when we have shelters in San Bernardino County and city, what could we do that would be something in support of them and would help them work hand in hand? So her focus started with things like education of how to treat animals appropriately and emphasis on the pet overpopulation crisis. So what we do today at our facility is low-cost spay and neuter, vaccination, and basic services for animals. And we also have a humane education program that teaches humane education to students in kindergarten through 6th grade in the San Bernardino Unified School District and other school districts when they're interested. And we also have a cruelty investigation program, which is 2 humane officers who, if you thought your neighbor, something as simple as their dog didn't have any shade, you could call them, or if it was a real serious crime, like you thought your neighbors were involved in dog fighting, they'll investigate that. Sometimes it's just education that solves the problem, or sometimes they work with the DA to prosecute those people who are animal abusers.
Oh, wow. I think it's really important to, what you guys do is, and like you just said, is educate and start from young, like these younger kids. I think it's really important to do that because I was just telling Tom before the show, I just came across a little doggy, and I now adopted her, and I've never had a pet before, but it definitely takes a lot of education. Like I Google just about everything about the dog just because I want to make sure that I'm doing the right thing, especially being with the heat here in the Inland Empire is really important as far as like leaving them in the car and that type of stuff. Right.
Yeah, that's so true. It's very overwhelming. It's almost like being a new parent to a baby. There is an education process. And what's great about our organization is you can always just call and ask those basic questions. Or when people come in for their first vaccine, we give them, hey, you're a new pet owner packet that gives them that information because you think it's simple, but it's a little more complicated when you welcome that member into your family.
Absolutely.
Jill, you've educated me. I didn't realize that, when I thought of pet adoptions, I would have thought, oh, yeah, dial Humane Society. So you don't handle adoptions. It's more education and on the lookout for cruelty, if you will.
Yes, that's correct. It is very confusing, and we're actually literally just one street away from the San Bernardino City Shelter, which helps add the confusion. And our name's confusing, too. We get a lot of phone calls that say things like, well, I donate to the Humane Society of the United States every month, so I support you guys. Well, we're not part of the Humane Society of the United States.
Okay.
And another common misconception is that we're part of the county or the city government, but we're not. We're a completely separate, private 501c3 nonprofit just functioning and raising money on our own.
Okay, great. And Jill, one of the things we do here is we're very interested in big-hearted communities, and obviously one of the things that you would be doing is improving our local community. So what we do is we spin for charity.
That's
and
right.
I have this little spinner in front of me, and I'm gonna hit it, and wherever it lands, on behalf of U-Turn Radio, we will donate to your favorite charity.
Okay.
And I'm assuming it's going to be the Humane Society of San Bernardino Valley.
It is, yes.
Okay.
So let's spin the wheel.
All right, here we go. Okay, so for today, U-Turn Radio is going to donate on behalf of Jill Henderson. We are going to donate $1,400 to the Humane Society of San Bernardino Valley.
That is so
That
awesome.
is so amazing. Thank you guys so much. That is so exciting and generous.
Thank you so much, Jill, for the work you guys do and help these animals and educate us too about how to take care of these pets.
Oh, yeah, I was happy to. Thank you guys so much. This is so exciting.
Okay, and we're gonna cut the break here, but if you, Jill, we'll catch up with you after the show and get your particulars off air.
Okay, sounds wonderful. Thank you.
Thank
guys
you,
have
Jill.
a great day.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Well, that's going to take us into the commercial break. When we come back, we'll have more here on U-Turn Radio.
We'll be right back to U-Turn after this commercial break. Don't go away.
How would you feel if you had to make a choice between buying food or spending your fixed income on life-saving medicine? No one should make that trade-off, but many low-income seniors are forced into difficult decisions like this every day. Smiles for Seniors Foundation provides energy assistance and safety net services to struggling low-income seniors in the Inland Empire. They provide one-time assistance to seniors to meet specific financial needs. They've helped with food, housing, utility payments, minor home and auto repairs, along with life-saving prescriptions or medical equipment. A nonprofit foundation funded entirely by donations from local organizations. Smiles for Seniors receives no funding from the state or federal government. They are funded by local businesses and individuals like you with big hearts and willing wallets. You can find more information or to donate to Smile for Seniors at 909-790-6671. That's 909-790-6671, or visit smilesforseniorsfoundation.org. That's smilesforseniorsfoundation.org.
Tom, Nadia, and Eric are back with more only on the U-Turn Radio Show right here on KCAA.
Welcome back to U-Turn Radio. Before the break, we were speaking to Jill Henderson from Humane Society of San Bernardino Valley, which is a charity, and we gave, or we're donating, what was it, $1,400?
$1,400.
Nice.
Yes.
And prior to, we were also talking about tools that are available to us, the citizens here in the Inland Empire.
Yeah, and before we go on to that, if you're listening and enjoyed that little piece of music there, if you go to mountainmusic.net, that's mountainmusic.net, you can download the entire album by Blue Skies and Red Wine. And there's some good tracks on there, and in our next commercial break, we're going to include another one there.
Absolutely.
Anyway, moving on. Okay, so a citizen can vote, right?
Right.
The next thing the citizen can do, or another piece in the toolbox, is the initiative. And basically, this is citizen-driven lawmaking, if you will.
How does it work?
It's actually a pretty difficult process.
Okay.
Difficult because it's expensive. Because what you got to do, in short, is you got to get X number of people to sign a petition, to agree with you, sign a petition, and then get this initiative or this change in the law or a new law on, and then it'll go on the ballot. So in San Bernardino County, it's 10% of the registered voters at the last gubernatorial election. In general, that ends up being about 30,000 people that you got to get a signature for or from.
From.
Okay, and if you do that and all the signatures are valid, it goes to the county. They look at it, and if everything's, if you got all your I's and T's and all that stuff taken care of, then it'll go on the ballot and the citizens can vote on it.
So let me ask you, usually like if you see this kind of happen when you go out to the stores and stuff, when you see people asking you to sign, is that kind of like what you're talking about when you're trying to get signatures from people?
That's exactly it.
Okay, because I always walk out of the stores and I've seen it, and it has happened to me a few times where somebody will stop me and ask me if I want to sign, and I've never taken the time to even listen to.
No, what you do is walking into the store, you see that person, and you change your traffic.
And I do that too. I've done that too. But this is why I think this is so interesting, because now I'm more aware that they're trying to create some type of change. So it makes more sense for me just to stop for a minute or two to hear them out and see what kind of law they're trying to like bring into or trying to change.
Well, that person likely is not trying to create change.
Okay, so what are we talking about now?
That person is likely a paid signature gatherer.
Okay.
And they're doing their job so they can,
get the signatures,
produce income.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Likely what's happening is there a group behind that is contracted with that gatherer to go ahead and do the work. And although that may seem a little cynical, it really is vital. So many signatures are required to get on a ballot that it's very, very difficult for just Joe Blow citizens who work in a regular job to get out there and collect all the signatures that are required. So that person is almost always a paid signature gatherer.
Got it.
So Tom, let me point out that where a citizen needs to get 27,000 signatures to get an initiative on the ballot, or a group of citizens, the supervisors themselves can put something on the ballot as an initiative without any signatures. They can just vote to put something on the ballot, and that's happened in the past and in a deceptive manner. But important to understand the distinction there. Not everything on the ballot is there because the citizens have put it on. Sometimes the citizens will go get 27,000 signatures, as we did in 2012, get something on the ballot that passed by 64% of the people, and the supervisors, not wanting it to go through because it affected their compensation, go put a deceptive ballot initiative on without any signatures. You can get that and put that right ahead of it on the ballot so it gets a little bit more votes, and everyone thinks they're voting for a pair of initiatives when one, in fact, cancels out the other.
Now, let me ask you this, Eric. How much does it cost if you want to do that and try to get signatures compared to a supervisor putting something on the ballot? Is there like a different...
supervisors, it doesn't cost at all. A group of citizens or someone, the price tag for putting something on the ballot is about $500,000. I'd say at the minimum, maybe up to $700,000-800,000 to get people to get those signatures for you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and Eric makes a very key point, and that is that the supervisors can go ahead and write up an initiative, a new law, or a change to a law, and they can go ahead and just put that straight on the ballot.
So they have a little bit of more power than what I thought, kind of.
They do have power, but again, by state constitution, power is in the people. So there is a method by which the people can bring a ballot or bring an initiative to the ballot, and obviously they've used it.
Right.
Well, this time, Tom, when we went back to try and get initiatives on, what did they do this go around? It was a different method of exercising their power.
Well, yeah, I'd actually kind of disagree a little bit with that. I think that's the system exercising its power, and what I mean by the system, I mean the bureaucratic system that is our government. And what they did last time, we actually submitted a large number of initiatives. And almost in every case, they sued us because they said in some way, shape, or form, the initiative that we submitted violated the California Constitution. Now, that's one, I won't say it's one lawyer in one office, but it's the Office of County Counsel that reviews the initiative and arbitrarily decided, okay, these are unconstitutional, so we're going to sue for relief.
And you think that they did that without talking to the supervisors?
I can't answer that question. I don't know. But I'm telling you what I think.
Well, I believe they discussed that, and that type of thing certainly would be discussed.
Okay. So. Moving on, the next the next tool in the toolbox is referendum. And this actually is very similar to the initiative, but has a different purpose. What you do with the referendum is if there's a law that you don't like that's about to be incorporated, you can go scramble and gather your signatures and submit it to the governing body, in this case, Board of Supervisors. And if all your ducks are in a row administratively, got enough signatures, then they have to put that implementation of that law, they have to put it on hold, and then they're obligated to either say, okay, we're not going to implement that law, or we're going to put the whole thing on the ballot. So you're looking at me like,
so you have
that's
to get
crazy.
right. So you have to get a certain amount of signatures to put that on hold, kind of.
Right.
If you don't agree
yeah,
with it.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Exactly.
What's that number, Tom?
I think it's the same thing as an initiative petition. I'd have to verify that. It was basically 10% of the registered voted in the last.
So the main difference between an ballot initiative, is that they are required to put a pending law on hold, some law that they've announced.
Yes, you got it.
Okay.
That's it. The last tool that's mentioned in the California Constitution is the recall. And for a recall, essentially, a person's elected, a group of citizens disagrees with how well they're doing the job, and you can actually go out and gather signatures and call a special election or an election to recall a legislator.
Oh, wow.
And basically, they have to step down depending on where the vote hangs out.
That's good.
Tom, let's come back to the actual numbers of how many signatures you need on these different methods, please, for the next show.
Not on this show, but yeah, I can do that. And then the last tool, which I'm kind of, this is a little bit different, but there's a last tool that citizens can use, and that is. And again, we're kind of working right at the county level here, and I call it the charade of the board meeting.
Which is.
Well, okay. In general, every 2 weeks there's a meeting of the Board of Supervisors, and the meeting has to be public.
Okay.
So any citizen can go participate in that meeting.
Got it.
If you're really interested, if you want to torture yourself, you can actually watch these things. They're posted on the county website. Mm-hmm. But they're a little bit they're interesting to watch once, I guess, because of how the structure. It's a very traditional, very agenda-driven item.
Right.
And what you have is, first there's what they call a private meeting, and that's just the Board of Supervisors. That the public cannot participate in that because of it's usually sensitive type stuff. So for an example, I think in this last meeting on the 26th, there was 3 or 4 items that they were going over on the agenda that had to do with lawsuits that were actually going on at the moment.
Right.
So,
Tom, let me just interrupt a little bit. My understanding, and I know this pretty much to be a fact, is if you want to go in and make comments at the Board of Supervisors meeting, it is public, but they'll only give you 1 minute to make your comments.
Actually, 3 minutes.
It's now 3. It used to be 1 minute.
Well,
but just keep in mind then it's 3 minutes to make your point.
Right, and it's 3 minutes that you have to apply for before the meeting ever starts.
So there's a process, even if you want to speak for 3 minutes, you have to fill out an application or something like that to get those 3 minutes and say. Do they ask you what you're going to say? I mean, is that part of like the process here?
Okay, so there's there's one section. All right, here's what happens. So you have the public section, the private session where the board talks about things that shouldn't be in the public,
Right.
Labor negotiations, those type of thing. And then they move on to the public section, and there's some kind of traditional type stuff at the beginning, and then they move into what's called the consent calendar. And from this last meeting, I think there were 91 items in the consent calendar. And anybody in the public can petition to speak to an item on the consent calendar. What happens with the consent calendar is basically the supervisors vote on all 91 items en masse. Does that make sense?
Right, yeah.
So you got this 91 topics. They don't want to go through them one by one. So, essentially, if there's no citizens there, they could all just look at each other and say, okay, you good with it? I'm good with it. Yeah, pass. And 91 items pass.
Wow, which is important because I remember when we went to do the interview with Janice Rutherford, she said that at the supervisors meeting, there's not one citizen there. So at some point, if you want to get involved, these are important things that maybe one should attend, you would say, Tom, to try to create change and those type of things or get involved?
Yeah.
I would say it's ineffective. I don't think they listen to anybody who does show up there. I know that I'll tell you a little bit of a story on my brother is a surgeon at the county hospital. And I relate this story earlier on another show, but he was concerned about people getting maimed and killed by improper treatment. Tried to bring it up through the chain of command at the county hospital, who it turned out were conflicted in that, the doctors at the hospital worked for them that were, that had the issue that needed to be addressed. And then the further conflict was that the same individual was contributing heavily to the county supervisors, so they wouldn't give him the time of day when he went beyond them and tried to talk to them about it. So he had to go and stand there and do a 1-minute talk at one of these public meetings. The newspaper wouldn't take it on, the Sun wouldn't take it on, and nobody would talk about something that was actually very important. So he had to go up there and for 1 minute, and that's all they gave him. And I wouldn't say that resulted in much change. I think the initiative to reduce the county supervisor's signature or salaries resulted in a pretty quick change to that. So there's citizens' methods that probably aren't in what we just talked about here. But as far as going and talking at the county supervisors, it was 1 minute. It might be 3 now, and probably not a very rewarding thing.
Okay, there's a strategy that we may get to it. May have to save it for next show, but we're going to have to go at a break in just a little bit. So what I'll do is kind of line up what I heard on June 26th with this wonderful lady at one of the Board of Supervisors, and although it was just one lady, mm-hmm. At least one lady is paying attention, and we'll play that clip after the next break.
We'll be back here on U-Turn Radio Show.
U-Turn is coming right back. Don't go away.
Let your mind run wild, let your spirit fly. Forget the ways that used to be. You can't lose yourself or anyone else and hold the truth that came to be. On the road tunnelling beneath dark skies and ancient and footprints. You can forget about the past. Breathe deep in a rhythm of things to come. Keep the hope for all to see.
Support the San Bernardino City Mission. Your donations help feed the hungry, provide used clothing for low-income families, provide access to housing and rehabilitation for the homeless, and help all who come to them for help. The mission provides a personalized assistance program for homeless men and homeless women and children. They help get less fortunate off the streets, place them in safe shelters, and get them back on their feet. Last month, the community helped provide over 7,400 meals and provided nearly 2,000 pieces of clothing, as well as almost 180 hygiene kits, which were provided for the needy. San Bernardino City Mission goes above and beyond, though, providing personal counsel, prayer, and a devotion time to encourage those in need in their spiritual life. So listen up, everyone. For a donation of just $1.57, you can feed a hungry person right here in San Bernardino. $15.70 will feed 10 people, and $157 will feed 100 hurting men, women, and children. If you're interested in helping and want to know more additional information, you can go to sanbernardinocitymission.org or call 909-649-0011. 909-649-0011. The San Bernardino City Mission, feeding the hungry, helping the homeless. That number again, 909-649-0011. Or visit them online, sanbernardinocitymission.org.
Nothing you can do to ease your pain, and every day it's still the same. You get up in the morning, your bed it ain't too warm, and another man that you would lie next to is gone. This is a hard luck town. There ain't a soul around to pick you up and give you a hand when you're feeling down. This is a hard luck town. They'll kick you when you're down. You better help yourself, there ain't nobody else around.
Tom, Nadia, and Eric are back with more only on the U-Turn Radio Show right here on KCAA.
Welcome back to U-Turn Radio. Before the commercial break, we were going over the toolbox, things that us citizens can do to see some type of change or see something in the ballot. We can also attend supervisor meeting, like Tom was saying. And you recently attended one, right?
Right. Well, no, I didn't attend it. I looked at the video online and went over the agenda, which every citizen can do. But one thing that
Tom,
I thought was...
Tom, before you go into that, I just did some math. You know, we had that spot on the mission feeding everyone for $1.57 a meal. And as far as I can tell, if... you know, just to illustrate the difference between the charities and private institutions and the government, you could feed everybody in San Bernardino County 3 meals a day for about $3.4 billion, and they got a $6.2 billion budget. So I just want to make that point.
You probably did that in your head.
There's other things they could be doing than what they say they're doing. We could all just sit at home and we'd get our meals, but
well,
it's working.
here's God bless this lady. I took this, and it's an edited track, but it's a track from the last Board of Supervisors meeting, and on this consent calendar, there were 3 items. One was a $4 million, almost $5 million charge for a contract. Another one was a $35 million temporary transfer of funds to county fire, and the last was a $254 million payment to SB Sarah, the county's retirement fund. And and you know, that's pretty big change there. And this is the only budgetary item that was even commented on, if you will, during that meeting. If Joe, if we could go ahead and play that clip.
My first question is number 16, and instead of reading it all, I'll just read the question because it says it all. What is the approximate cost for each virtual desktop environmental and application delivery? In other words, it's so complicated, I was wondering how much it costs. And number 18, again, adopt the recommendation for the audio controller, treasurer, tax collector for temporary transfer of funds. What is listed on attachment A for the $159,889? And number 20, again, it has to do with money, obviously. So the question again is, it has to do with the auditor, controller, treasurer, tax collector to make advance payments to the board for $254,258,047. And the question there is, what is the cost for each retirement person? $258,258,046. I know they're not all getting the same amount of money for retirement, but it would be nice to know what the averages are. Thank you very much.
Okay, so the point of that clip is hopefully to get a message of citizen involvement. That wonderful lady was the only one. She wasn't the only one that commented. There were comments on other parts of the consent calendar, but there's a lot of money being spent just by yes/no vote on the consent calendar, and that wonderful lady was the only one, as near as I can tell, in San Bernardino County,
right, that
showed up and said, "Hey, what are we spending almost $5 million on this computer contract for, and why are we transferring $35 million to county fire, and why are we giving $254 million to the retirement fund, and oh, by the way, how much do they make?"
Right.
That was it. That was it.
So did they answer her, or like what?
No.
They didn't.
Oh, no.
No.
You can make a comment. That doesn't mean they have to respond to it.
So you're telling me that this poor lady goes, you sit there, you question them about the money or the budget that they're using the money for or whatever, and they don't have to respond to you and give you answers?
Not in the public forum, no.
So.
No, well, I don't think they do, Tom. I don't think they're public or non-public or anything. They don't have to give you an answer. You get a right to go say something. Because I know when my brother got up there, okay, you're 1 minute's up. Don't expect a response from those things. So
it's kind of pointless, if you ask me, if you're not getting an answer of what to do if you're trying to change something, or if even she's only questioning why so much money. I mean, $254 million is a lot. $35 million for the county fire. I mean, that's a lot of money.
It is, and we'll go on. You know, there might be a strategy involved with that, but again, I want to make the point of, and let's step back a little bit.
Okay.
My theory, and I think it's true, is that elected officials, well, ruling officials, as a rule, fear the people. Now, they're not going to admit that. They're not going to say that, but they fear the people.
If the people are organized.
And the reason is because there's a whole lot more of us than them, right? Okay, so there's an underlying, I think, fear that drives rulership or leadership. Now, is the county going to be fearful of this one lady? Probably not.
Right.
But there's probably some strategies that maybe a concerned citizen group can use in those toolboxes. That if it's more than one, and the conversation keeps coming back, the Board of Supervisors keeps hearing, hey, we're spending too much money. What are we spending money on? Why are we investing this huge amount in retirements? That they're going to begin to listen.
Right. Well, let me ask you this, Eric. What happened to your brother? Did he get a reply or an answer when he went to this meeting, to a supervisor meeting?
No, they were threatening to remove his group who had been doing surgeries at the county hospital for 25 years. They were threatening to remove their privileges so that no one in his group of 25 surgeons, probably the best orthopedic group in the county, that could actually practice there. And that was on a path until Red Brennan, who we named our organization after, came up with the idea that why don't you put an initiative on the ballot to cut their pay? And so and he spearheaded that, and they changed their tune real quick after that. So, no response or anything to going and speaking before the Board of Supervisors. And let me point out that the Board of Supervisors now is not the same as it was then. There was, at that time, Janice Rutherford and Josie Gonzalez were on the board at that time. So they have some culpability. I would say the other three do not. But at that time, they didn't even think they had a conflict of interest, where they were taking money from the person who was the chief of surgery at the hospital, who they then appointed the medical director at the hospital, so that any problem at the hospital in surgery had to be reported to the same person who actually had most of the surgeons at the hospital working for him, handling their payroll for him and whatnot. And I think the board, as it's currently configured, would be a little more aware of how conflicted a situation that is. But
you think that much has changed since then to now?
Well,
other than instead of getting 1 minute to talk, question. It's 3 minutes.
Maybe they bumped it up to 3 minutes, and they have realized that there is a conflict. And there was a county CEO at that time, Greg Devereaux, who, in a face-to-face discussion, didn't think there was a conflict either, and came to realize it after some time and thought in it. But you're pretty much putting all the county in the hands of an individual like that, without a concern. I think the current guy that's taking his place, I still think it's way too much to put in one person's hand. Gary McBride, maybe a little more conscious of stuff like that. Maybe that's an improvement. Maybe you get 3 minutes instead of one. But certainly from an overall financial standpoint and, administration of the county, I wouldn't say that things have gotten materially better. Maybe even worse. We've talked about the growth, 50% growth over less than 10 years and why the county's only grown 4%. Train's gonna go off the track eventually, and our purpose is to try and inform people before it does and do something.
And speaking of doing something, one of the things we're going to get to that no way we're going to get to them all was maybe a little bit of a strategy, a list of things that we can do.
Okay.
So I'll throw these out there, just the titles, and then we'll probably end up having to talk about them next week. So strategy number 1, I called Bees at the Board, and that's basically active involvement in that Board of Supervisor meeting on a consistent basis with a good number of people. That's strategy number 1. Strategy number 2 is out with the old, and that's the power of the vote. Go out and find that person that you agree with their list of legislative strategy,
Right.
what's important to them, and vote for them. And quite frankly, I don't care what that legislative strategy is, as long as it's what you want done
And
and
you
your
agree,
vote,
right.
you know, and then y'all go to the ballot box and whichever wins, and we all march off together as kind of a united people. So that strategy, there's probably some more detail there for a small government guy like me, but out with the old. That's strategy 2. Strategy 3 is direct democracy, initiate the initiatives. And that's going to take some finesse, because Red Baron Group has tried to do that and ran into some bureaucratic snags, if you will.
Yeah, called lawsuits.
Yeah.
From your own government.
But I think it can, I'm pretty certain it can be done. So again, a group of concerned citizens could.
It did get done. It was 64% passed in 2012, and it didn't take effect.
Well,
So
how much are they suing for?
They don't sue for money.
Oh, okay.
What they do is sue for relief of their legally required job.
I think they asked for their legal costs to be paid at some point. They didn't get it, but they asked for that.
Essentially, there's a state law that says they have a ministerial duty. And what that means is they're required to do it, just without question. They're required to do it. And in this case, county council, state law, they have a ministerial duty to write a ballot title and summary. But they didn't like what we submitted. They didn't like what the Red Baron Group submitted. So what they have to do is they go to the judge and sue for relief of that job that they're supposed to be doing.
Got it.
Well, to be sure, what they didn't like was a ballot initiative that said, you've grown the county budget 10% a year, or you've grown the county budget approximately 42% at that time over the last 10 years, and you've grown the head count 18% when the county has only grown 4%. So let's do a reset on that over the next 10 years. It's not anything drastic, but decrease the budget, decrease the head count through attrition, and not for police, but over the next 10 years to try and get back to where it was 10 years ago when everything worked the same. And that they thought was an improper thing to put on the ballot to be asked, and that's what they sued on.
And the interesting thing, and I know we're about out of time here, but if you look at California case law, that in no way should they have sidelined our initiatives at that point.
Right.
Those should go on and go in front of the people. You get your chance. You go through the initiative signature gathering process, and if the people think it's crazy, it won't make it. Yeah.
But they didn't even get to that.
We didn't even get that chance.
Wow. Do you want to finish the last 2 strategies before we wrap it up here?
The last 2, referendum recall, obviously at this point is probably not part of our strategy. So
has anybody ever done a referendum or recall in recent history that you've found, Tom?
Yeah, actually, the state assemblyman over in the Orange County area was recently recalled because he voted for the gas tax. And the folks in his district didn't appreciate that, and he was recalled, and another, if you will, fiscally more conservative person was voted in.
Oh, wow.
Is that Chad Mays?
No, I don't even remember the guy's name.
Well, guys, that wraps it up for us. This is U-Turn Radio.
Okay.
KCAA Loma Linda, 1050 AM, 106.5 FM, and now 102.3 FM.
now.
A marathon in Philly. I'm Jeff Nathanson. Checking the Major League Baseball scoreboard. They are in the top of the 13th inning right now. The Nationals and the Phillies tied 3-3 in this contest that has featured 18 different pitchers combined between the two teams. And this is the most amazing statistic. Of those 18 pitchers, 6